And good morning. Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Our time is 6:06, and here we go. One of those days where we think, what is going to be said on the radio? What is going to be said when we're talking about this national tragedy? What is going to be said when people are trying to cope with things, right? When people are trying to cope with the shooting and cope with everything else. It is crazy when one thinks about this. We can pray and we can react and we can do our very best, right? We can do our very best to make a difference at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Think about that when we're dealing with this type of tragedy, right? We will take your calls on these shootings. We'll take your calls on just about everything going on today. Obviously, this is a topic that Glenn Beck will be talking about, Sean Hannity will be talking about, and, of course, we'll be talking about. Joining us now from Washington, D.C., Jeff Ferry. Jeff, good to have you with us.
Hi, Kevin. Good morning. How are you?
Well, just trying to make sense of this nonsense over the weekend. Your thoughts on what you've seen on television and everything else so far?
I think it's a terrible situation, and something has to be done to stop this wave of shootings and violence and mental health problems. I don't know myself what it is. I'm an economist. I'm focused on other sort of issues. I guess in that context, economics are easier issues.
I suppose they are. But again, this is something that's going to be talked about for quite some time. And it's difficult to speak about. This is just everywhere. Right?
Yeah, it's tragic. I think something needs to be done. I'm not sure what.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Coalition for a Prosperous America.
Yes, let's talk about that. So we are a coalition in Washington of manufacturers, labor unions, and agricultural groups. We're bipartisan, and we're focused on trade issues and rebuilding the U.S. economy and rebuilding American manufacturing and restoring prosperity to the American worker and farmer. And we think trade has to be addressed to do that. And where there are a number of issues and topics where we've been fighting for here in Washington to get a better trade deal in the world and improve the situation of our industries.
Well, Jeff, you have a lot of people criticizing the new NAFTA, the Democrats saying it's bad. People are worried about this week concerning China. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that President Trump is going in the right direction on all these things. And, I think he's right to say that the U.S. government should be focused on the U.S. economy. And the USMCA deal on NAFTA is an improvement. That deal has cost us a lot of jobs. Literally 1 million jobs have gone to Mexico in the last 20 years. And that balance needs to be addressed. And the USMCA, it doesn't solve the problems, to be frank. That problem is still there, but it improves things, particularly in industries like the auto industry, the steel industry, and the textiles industry. Now, China is actually a bigger issue right now. As you know, China, we've had the largest trade deficit between any two countries in the history of the world, $400 billion last year. And we've seen upwards of 2 to 3 million jobs go to China over the last 20 years if you evaluate the industries that have lost jobs there. And so I think the tariffs are exactly the right thing to do. I'm pleased that he's broadening the tariffs to encompass all of our imports from China. I think that what those tariffs are going to do, what they're already doing, is encouraging manufacturing industry to leave China and go elsewhere. And a portion of that manufacturing industry is coming back to the United States. And that's very good for the U.S. economy. And we're leading towards a decoupling of the U.S. and the Chinese economy, which is something I'm in favor of.
And why is that?
Well, because I think China has been unfair on trade for the last 20 years. They've used every trick in the book to advantage their own industry at the expense of our industry, and notably intellectual property theft is the worst of all these tricks, although there's plenty of them. There's currency manipulation, there's tariffs, there's non-tariff barriers. I mean, they believe not only that they would like to make the Chinese economy the strongest in the world, I think they believe that undermining the U.S. economy is a good thing for them. And we have to take a realistic view of the situation in the world today. And we can't change how China governs itself internally, although maybe that will change. But what we can do is protect and rebuild our own economy. And the U.S. economy has always been strongest and grown best when it's serving its own population and its own consumers. And that's the direction we need to move in. And in fact, we are moving in that direction with these tariffs.
All right, Jeff, if people want to get a hold of you, Coalition for Prosperous America, obviously we'll have you back on a day where, we can focus on the economy because it's so very important. We do want to talk to you eventually about the debt and the deficit, but we appreciate your time this morning. How can they get a hold of you, sir?
Let me say one more thing, which is another plan we're supporting, which we can talk about another time, is a plan to make the dollar more competitive in the world market. So two senators introduced a bill last week, which we're big supporters of, Senators Tammy Baldwin and Josh Hawley of Missouri. Tammy Baldwin is from Wisconsin, and they're bipartisan. One's a Democrat, the other's a Republican, and that's going to realign the dollar if we can get that bill through the Congress, and that will be a big help to manufacturing, agriculture, and trade. So we are at prosperousamerica.org. Like I say, we're a bipartisan organization fighting for a better deal for Americans. And you can go to our website, prosperousamerica.org, click on research to read my reports, or just look around our website. We've got lots of very successful folks talking about what's going on in industry. And you can also
Jeff,
click on the currency tab to read about the new currency bill.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
And there we have it, where Jeff couldn't take a clue. We appreciate that, and obviously we want to make sure that you are informed, you have a chance to speak about this issue. This news coverage over the weekend was challenging, right? Challenging when we're hit with the negativity. Now you have people saying we need universal background checks. Now we have people blaming the president. You have failed, soon-to-be former presidential candidates going after the president. Is that really what this world has become? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And, just one more thought about Jeff. If you're not going to speak about the news of the day, then we'll have you back and talk about the economy. And that we respect his work, but it's time to go. Nobody today cares about some senator from Wisconsin, speaking frankly. What they do care about is keeping folks safe. And it comes down to safety and security. Now, some people say, well, how do you feel? When you walk into a Walmart, when you go to a nightclub, and we should disarm everyone. We should have universal background checks. And we already see the hate from the left, in my opinion. And look, that's the great thing about having the First Amendment in America. People are entitled and have the freedom to express their views. Blaming President Trump. One guy saying that we should put people in jail, anybody that says illegal alien. And you talk to law enforcement people. By the way, thank God for law enforcement, right? 6 minutes they were there. This guy surrenders, drove 600 miles to do this, said he hated people before President Trump came to office, so don't blame President Trump. People still blaming President Trump. It's the dumb blame game. This guy passed every background check. Most of these shooters have passed the background checks. Now, that's why we need red flag laws. That's why we need all these other laws. Unfortunately, and it's so easy for me to say with respect to the victims of Dayton, Ohio, of El Paso, Texas, that it's so easy for me to say, well, we need to protect ourselves. And to blame white nationalism, I don't know what white nationalism is. I don't know. I know the rhetoric on both sides has been going crazy. And I got to tell you, You know, the comments of Beto O'Rourke blaming President Trump are irresponsible. And we'll get to that. But this is one of those days where let's just have a conversation, as we do every morning at 580-5436, but about your reaction to this shooting. And I can tell you what the Democrats are doing. They're ready to grab the guns. Jim in Middleton, thank you for waking up on the right side. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, Jim.
Well, you're welcome, Kevin. Nice place to wake up on that side of, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Kevin, you know, most politicians, they are the most cowardly, deceitful beings on the planet. Instead of asking more important questions and really getting to the root of this problem, is why are we having our young people today thinking about this, okay? Not just carrying it out and having these thoughts in their head. All these firearms, all these guns were available, Kevin, in the early 50s, late 50s, excuse me. And semi-automatic high-capacity magazines, which really is just a non-word because your semi-automatics from pre-1900s had high capacity or larger capacity than, okay, that's just standard capacity, really. But that's neither here nor there. We didn't have these problems. Kevin, did you have these problems when you went to school?
No.
Okay, when you went shopping? Neither did I. It wasn't, Kevin, it wasn't even a thought in our mind. Okay? It wasn't the news of the day. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't a thought. But today, fast forward to today, and contrary to popular belief, the firearms that we have today are absolutely no different than the guns that we had at the turn of the century. No different if somebody wants to dig down and see what we had then, what we have now. Same thing, okay? So, and for them to not even address what is in people's minds today, what did we do as a society to go down this path? And that's why I say that these politicians are cowardly and they're deceitful, and they're using this to advance a cause or, gun control and so forth. But anyway, I wanted to put that out there, and anyone who wants to dispute what I just said, have them call you up and do so. Anyway, Kevin, you have a great day. I love listening to you.
Thank you, Jim. God bless.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
Be counted against what this president is doing, against this white nationalist racism, against this violence, and getting this country back. They are saying that our differences are, in fact, dangerous. If you're a Muslim, you're inherently dangerous. If you are an immigrant, you are inherently dangerous. If you are an asylum seeker, you are invading this country. You are an infestation. Those words have very real consequences. You don't get mass shootings like these. You don't torch mosques. You don't put kids in cages until you have a president who's given people permission to do that. And that's exactly what's happening in the United States of America today.
Just to be clear, I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I was trying to point out that there seems a glaring double standard in how law enforcement and Congress talks about these incidents. These are white supremacist terrorist acts over and over and over in which people are being murdered. And I was trying to offer a hypothetical. If it were a different group, I feel like it would be a red alarm, fire, a 4-alarm fire. But let me move on, because during one of the debates, your 2020 opponent, Governor Jay Inslee of Washington, said that President Trump is a, quote, white nationalist. That was a fairly stark accusation. Do you agree with that? Do you think President Trump is a white nationalist?
Yes, I do. And again,
there we have it. Beto O'Rourke, Jay Nitwit Inslee going after the president. By the way, the comments they're talking about, what does this have to do with a mentally deranged killer going into a Walmart and killing innocent people? Is that going to bring the mother of the 2-month-old baby back? 580-5436. 580-KIDO. We'll be taking your calls all morning long. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio time at 6:25. Pat in Middleton, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good to hear from you.
Oh, it's good to be heard. This is upsetting to hear the response by the Democrats. It's awful because, for one thing, none of these guys are Republicans or have a MAGA hat on or said they voted for Trump. They all had hate for specific groups that had been bullies to them. So I think this is a wimpy kid acting out in the only way he knows he can respond, because he's been bullied by Americans and bullied by his society, telling him that he's not really a guy. He really is a gender neutral or even a girl, or that he shouldn't be mansplaining. He shouldn't be manly. And they've been suppressing his, when I was a kid growing up, and I'm a little older than you, we were told to, hey, take it out on the football field or go wrestle outside, go fight outside. We weren't told that we weren't men. We were told to burn our energy some other constructive way. A law enforcement officer, to become a football player, an athlete. Go burn your energy. Go be the man you're meant to be, but be it in a way that's constructive and beneficial, not destructive. These guys nowadays are told to, oh, come on, you're really a girl. You're really, not supposed to be that tough. And so these guys they go into a shell, and finally they explode, because what happens to the wimpy kid that gets picked on by the big bully all the time? He eventually lashes out at either the bully or someone else. And I think this is it. Yes, President Trump's right about the mental illness issue, but I think this is a character issue. This is a gender issue. This is dumbing out the roles of manhood and destroying manhood, because women want more women, and women want to become the men, and they want the men to become the women. And just like that soccer player who disgusts me, because he's absolutely vile, and nothing I've ever wanted to be as a man. I never wanted to act like that as a man. And this woman acts more bullyish as a woman, and it's disgusting, and she's not even attractive as a woman, which is sad. And women should be women and men should be men. That's all I can say.
Well, good to have you back, Pat.
I'm always glad to be back.
You take care. Thank you, sir.
Love you, brother.
Love you. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. David, hang on the line. We'll get to you next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Actually, why don't we do this? Let's break format and go to David. David, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm not going to go through all of Trump's bona fides again because it gets boring. Dated a black lady. Al Sharpton patted him on the back. Jesse Jackson converted to Judaism, his daughter, and married a Jew. The Israelis put him on their money. He moved. And I guess I did go through most of his bona fides.
You did.
Here's the thing. I want you to watch something that happens over the next couple of days. There were two shootings, one in Ohio and one in Texas. The guy in Texas, you could say he was a kook, he's a white nationalist, and so is Donald Trump, right? The guy in Ohio is a devil-worshipping anarchist who hates Republicans. Let's see how much each shooter gets. Same day, within hours, didn't they happen? Let's see how much he gets. Okay? Let's see how much time each one gets.
That's a very good point. And remember the D.C. shooter that almost killed Congressman Solis. How much attention did he get?
Yeah, how much time did he get? Or my favorite, and I hate to say this, but the synagogue shooting in San Diego, they were Trump supporters. And the guy was an anti-Trump guy, but by the time the national prostitutes got a hold of him, he's a Trump supporter, and they hate Trump. His victims hate Trump. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I agree with you. I think it's irresponsible. And why don't we do this? We have the O'Rourke clip teed up here. We'll let you respond to it here.
These are white supremacist terrorist acts over and over and over in which people are being murdered. And I was trying to offer a hypothetical. If it were a different group, I feel like it would be a red alarm, fire, a 4-alarm fire. But let me move on, because during one of the debates, your 2020 opponent, Governor Jay Inslee of Washington, said that President Trump is a, quote, white nationalist. That was a fairly stark accusation. Do you agree with that? Do you think President Trump is a white nationalist?
Yes, I do. And again,
Your thoughts?
I don't even know what a white nationalist is. Until 3 years ago, I had never, ironically, I'd heard of black nationalism. That's what Kwanzaa is, celebrating. The inventor said it is a black nationalist holiday. The Black Panther Party, remember they were patrolling George Zimmerman's neighborhood? They did the dead or alive tweet with his address. It turned out it wasn't his address. They want to cut 5 states out of the union. What are they going to do? What's he going to do? Kill his daughter? Kill his grandchildren? My God, these people. And Beto, oh, my God, that man is so disgusting. He's a jerk. And he's weird. He's weird. Dinesh D'Souza said if somebody came and said, his name was Robert, and he said, "Hi, my name is Shiva," and he started talking to you in Hindi, you'd think he was weird. Hi, Marianne Williamson.
You're right.
Harris.
Yep. David, thank you for the call. More of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. More of your phone calls next. Your reaction to the shootings in Dayton and El Paso, Texas, right here on KIDO Talk Radio. Joining us now is Jessica Rosenthal with the very latest on the shooting in El Paso. She joins us from El Paso, Texas. Jessica, good morning.
Good morning.
As we've heard on your national reports, you've been down there talking to folks. What's the reaction locally?
The reaction locally kind of ranges between, that stunned, shocked face all the way to, anger and of course, sadness. A lot of people here have a lot of opinions, but they also say they have a lot of questions. One of the things I keep hearing from people is, I knew this couldn't be somebody from here. I knew it. And the mayor said as much. DeMargo said that this couldn't have been an El Pasoan. And people are really sort of jumping on that and saying that, nobody who's from here would have done such a thing, especially motivated by, anti-Hispanic thoughts and feelings. As it turns out, this, it's looking like this shooter was motivated by that, given this manifesto law enforcement think is probably attributed to him. So, you hear that reaction. I've also heard a lot of reaction to a couple of things. One, some folks want more gun laws. They ask that question, and I hear every mass shooting, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? How many more mass shootings until we get, more new gun laws, stricter gun laws? And then you have folks on the other side who say, this isn't necessarily a gun issue. For them, it's more of a moral issue, put God back in schools. And, you hear like that kind of talk from people who think this is a lapse in morality in this country. So, you're just getting such a wide range. It's just running the gamut of emotion and thought.
And obviously, emotion. What do we know about the shooter?
Yeah. 21-year-old guy had been living with his grandparents outside in Allen, Texas, which is outside of Dallas. That's a 10-hour drive, by the way, from El Paso to Allen. The grandparents issued a statement saying that their grandson had been living with him, but not for the past 6 weeks. So that adds a whole new layer, really, to the motivation and what might have driven this person to do this. What happened in the past 6 weeks? Where was he living if he was in this beautiful upscale home in Allen and then suddenly not in that house anymore? Where was he? What was he up to? We don't know that yet. As for, his mental state and what we know about that, as I said, law enforcement do think this manifesto that appeared online about 20 minutes before the shooting, they do believe that's his work. It's filled with, anti-Latino, anti-Hispanic rhetoric, talking of like a Hispanic invasion, and, it gets political. So if in fact that's attributed to him, which it sounds like it is more and more, we definitely have more of an insight into what this person was thinking and what motivated him.
Jessica Rosenthal joining us from Fox News Radio live in El Paso, Texas on KIDO Talk Radio. Do we know how he got his weapon? Reports, at least initially, say that he got his weapon legally, or is it too soon in the process to find that out?
Law enforcement did say they believe it was purchased legally, but we're not hearing where it was purchased from. We typically get that question answered a little bit earlier in the process than we have here. Like in the Gilroy shooting last week, we know he bought it in Nevada, and that information came out relatively quickly. Here, we're not getting that. We don't even have a full list of names of all of the deceased. So in some areas, law enforcement is moving a little bit more slowly in terms of releasing information. But, they are saying that they do believe this manifesto is attributed to him, but at the same time, they're not saying necessarily where this gun was purchased. So we still have a lot more to learn in this case.
Jessica Rosenthal, live from El Paso, Texas, Fox News Radio. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Kurt in Boise with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Kurt.
Morning, Kevin.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. It was a very interesting interview with the lady there. I would just like to point out back when Obama and Eric Holder were in office, how many police officers and different people got shot, and they didn't really seem to say anything about it. They weren't calling Obama and Holder, like black nationalists or we need to do something about it. Actually, Eric Holder is the one that started the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and nobody's really thought anything about it compared to what they're kind of stuff they're talking about Trump now. So I just found it really interesting that when the shoe's on the other foot, they don't seem to say anything.
I would agree with you. You go back to Fast and Furious, and the scary part about Kamala Harris and the other Democrats is they seek, at least initially, what I heard, Kurt, was they seek to go after police again. We need to investigate police. We need to go after police. We need to do this and that's really what Obama did with the police officers. They were targets. They were targeted. They were shot at. They had a lot of public mistrust sown by the Obama administration, and we don't need that. Again, I didn't see Obama or Eric Holder or anybody else going into the nightclub or to the Walmart or to anything else when these bad things happen. It's the police.
Right. And, so I just don't understand. The Democrats, they just want to stir it up even more, and I just don't understand what their purpose is. I don't think they're going to get more votes, and the people that would vote for them under those circumstances are not the majority of the people in America. And so I think they're kind of used the wrong euphemism here. They're shooting themselves in the foot. Beto is, I don't understand where he's even coming from. Is it? Do you think it's white guilt or something? Or I don't know.
I think it's a desperation to win the White House. The guy is going nowhere, and you have political candidates. Unfortunately, they're going nowhere that are saying anything and doing anything to get themselves noticed. The idea of health care for illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, the idea of we're going to give free college tuition. These are not attainable goals, and yet we hear this all the time from the Democrats. They don't have any substance, and if you want to tone it down, the last thing you do is call the president a racist. I think people are looking for leadership. Beto, Robert, whatever his name is. Jake Tapper asked, Jake, now is not the time to blame. We're here in El Paso. Our thoughts and prayers to the folks in Dayton. We need to come up with a rational, bipartisan consensus solution. And none of the Democrats are saying that, unfortunately, right now.
I know. I totally agree with you. So they want to take our guns away, but Kamala Harris owns guns, and I'm sure that 99% of the senators and Congress people have armed security.
Right.
And so they're speaking with forked tongues here, and I just don't really understand that. They can't, like you're saying, they can't accomplish anything that they're offering, and I just don't understand it. I think the solution might be to bring God back into the country and, teach more of the things that's in the Bible, because everything else that they tried since they've taken it out of schools since, the mid-'60s, hasn't helped any. And it could totally be a spiritual thing, but also I think there's some mental health issues here with the kids that are getting these guns. I mean, they're trying to make some kind of statement.
Right.
But I don't know how.
Not only that, but you have kids that, the millennial generation, probably the most blessed since the baby boomers, but most of them are depressed. Most of them feel isolated. Most of them can communicate efficiently on a phone, but can't hold a conversation. And then you have the violent video games and everything else. Now, what caused this man to drive 10 hours to do this? We don't know. But that's really what we should be trying to figure out. We don't know. And let's focus and pray to God for the victims, like the mother and dad that died shielding their 2-month-old child so the child could live. Why don't we honor the victims instead of trying to come up with the blame game and calling people names? That's really what I think America needs right now.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And I really think, too, that we need to try to keep the shooters or the perpetrators' names and things out of the paper, because it's just giving them more recognition, if you will, and I don't think we should give it to them. I think you're absolutely right. We think we should pray and think about the survivors, not the perpetrators.
Kurt, thank you for waking up on the right side. Take care, brother.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Coming up next, we'll hear from Sergeant Robert Gomez, the sheriff of the El Paso Police Department. Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio.
These are two incredible places. We love the people. Hate has no place in our country, and we're going to take care of it.
There you have the president, his comments, and you heard that from Ray Amaya as well. Good morning. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, getting your reaction to the shootings and the Democrats' reaction, wanting to take your guns. The New York Post now saying it's time to do something about gun control. But even when the assault weapons ban was going on, we still had shootings. We have a report from Fox in Chicago today. Hospitals overwhelmed because of multiple shootings, gang violence. Yet that doesn't get covered. And as we say in all these incidences that happen, and God bless law enforcement for going in and rushing into the danger, let's focus on the victims. Let's focus on the people that did their very best for their children. Shouldn't that what this area is about, as opposed to the screaming matches that we're hearing on television again and again and again from people that have a political agenda?
Understand the kind of continuity, the line, the connection. What does it mean to have a discourse in which people are dehumanized, where you use a phrase like illegal immigrant, where the phrase itself places that person outside of a certain kind of sense of empathy and decency? What happens?
Otherizing.
What happens when we use language like infestation, children? You use this, Governor, children.
Yes.
Carrying perhaps disease across the border. What happens? You set the stage for people who are even more on the extreme to act violently. We are in a cold civil war. And there are some people who bear the burden of it, Chuck. There's some of us who bear the burden. You could take it. You could not blame anyone other than Oswald. My parents had to worry about other folk because we grew up in Mississippi. You had the luxury not to worry about the context. But we had to live. We had to grow up in it. So here we have children. I'm sorry to go on and on. We have children in El Paso right now, right, who've just witnessed their family members, their friends, shot down because somebody thinks there's a Hispanic invasion of the country, which is almost the exact same language of the President of the United States. Governor, if you can't condemn that without making the equivalency move.
Well, I'm not going to condemn people who use illegal immigrant terms.
Of course, why not?
No, in this.
Why not?
There we have it from Meet the Press, the liberal talk show of record. Governor Pat McCrory, former governor, a friend of mine, going back and forth with the guy from Princeton saying, now you can't say illegal alien. What does that really have to do with what happened in El Paso? 580-5436. And I'm sorry to the professor from Princeton that his childhood was horrific in Mississippi. But to make that leap to what's happening today, I think is not accurate. Your call's next. First, traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. Liberty Linda, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. I wanted to preface this first by saying, you know how horrific and horrible this was. The victims and the families. I mean, it's something that we never want to hear again. Something that goes to our heart. And we don't want to hurt. We don't even want to hear that one person's feelings have been hurt. But Kevin, I have heard, like the guy in Gilroy was not the actual shooter, that he was set up. This whole thing was a setup. And so I was wondering, now we have these other two shootings right after. Could these have been setups as well to take our guns away from us? The question I have, it came to me immediately. And so I wanted to get that question out. Is there a reason why these things are happening? And were any of these individuals in government programs for drugs? That's some of the questions I have. And of course, we don't want to see one person hurt. That's the most important thing. But some of these other questions I think are important to be answered.
Well, we will be rolling all day long with your phone calls, just nonstop calls on that. Of course, we'll hear from the president as well. Liberty Linda, thank you. Keep listening to get an answer to that question. Have a great day.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Coming up next, more of your thoughts on the mass shootings. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. God bless.